Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is a video which I was very reluctant to make. Um, Very reluctant to make because it's just a subject that doesn't go down very well at all, and you can really be shunned by um, a lot of people, even within your own family. There's people who have such strong opinions on this that it's a dangerous thing to touch. So like I've mentioned in the past, you just don't. Politics and religion is just really dicey subjects. I don't know why I was always so fascinated by science, politics, etc. It's just ingrained. I was just that way. So let's just quickly get religion out of the way fast. So just take a minute. Um, I follow a lot of atheists on the internet. I follow because they're interesting. They look at things in a more scientific sense, so you can get some very good ideas from these people and see their worldview. Um, but I won't call myself an atheist. So what do I mean by that? Well, basically, I just find it easier to just have a concept of heaven because death can be a traumatic and experience. Whether you're gonna die yourself, you'll have some fear of life after death, and or if you lose a loved one, you will want that to exist. You'd want to have the continuation of that. So that might be delusional because you can't prove it. But I find that a lot of atheists have also admitted of having this fear later in life when they are coming close to deathbed. Then these thoughts come into it, so it's just easier. I just go, yeah, it's fine. It gives me less to think about. Because if the more educated and the more scientific you become, the more this fear builds up. Because if you in India and you ask some person who's not educated and they're from a poorer background or poor and not educated, you ask them what happens when you die, and they just go, oh, you go to heaven. It's ignorance is bliss. Ignorance is bliss, but we do science and planets and universe, and, and then we go, oh, this is it's not proven, so it probably doesn't exist. But yeah, it just gives me less to think about. And the other side of religion, like I like the old gods of Europe, like the Thors and the Vikings and the Valhalla and all that, and I like the Greco-Roman, Zeus's and Poseidon's and all that. And yeah, and even in in Hindu religion, or some Indian religions, they have these characters who these epics like Mahabharat and all that, and they make good entertainment, good read, and you can pick up some interesting ways of thinking of things. And so yeah, that's what my basic extent is. So that's out. No more ever bringing that subject again. Um, the other thing is, I always find it hard to do it. The other thing is that I want to speak about is society, and this video is going to be called "Rest in Peace Science" because it's become so easy to ignore it that it's and just push it away because it doesn't go with your worldview. So you have these extreme positions people take. You can see this in America's this election. It's so you either hate Clinton or you hate Trump, and they two opposites. And when somebody doesn't, then you bring yourself into a group. So you left wing, you right wing, and if somebody just says something that you don't agree with their worldview, you will just throw aside all logic, all reason, and you will just be angry with this person because they don't agree with your worldview. So I understand that. I understand that people's opinions change with time as well, with age, with maturity, with growing, things like that. Or maybe you don't. There's just people who just refuse to dig into things. They refuse to look at it in a scientific because they don't bring enough information together. They just get their narrative from weak sources, from just what other people's opinions are in the articles, in the websites they like to go and sit on. Um, they just start believing their opinion. So I mean, I can give you that. Yeah, things do change. I mean, there might have been time that I might have thought of some politician or some figure as somebody worthwhile, and then as they go and the years pass and things, then you realize that either their views are becoming kind of weird, maybe they have an agenda or something. So yeah, you can change. Your opinions can change. Right. So what we're going to talk about? Well, I'm going to point at the map, and we're going to start with a few things. This is going to be a bit longer video, but I think you'll find it interesting. So China. Let's start with China, because China, as you know, some time ago, they, uh, they created a law called the one-child policy. So, what happened there? Well, in China, enough time has passed with this law that the demographics has changed heavily in China. So the government is now at the stage where they are literally paying people to have a female child, a girl child, and that's because this the society has become such a bad ratio that it's leading to some very strange stuff. Um, uh, Men are now finding it more and more difficult to find a partner or a wife or to have their families with. So there's various things going on. There's like people who are literally buying a girl child from the rural area and bringing her to the city and bringing her up as a future um, partner for their son, and which is that's just not nice. And all men are going to other countries to like Vietnam or Philippines or and acquiring their partners from there. And the society in China itself has changed, like especially in the urban society, has changed heavily. Women are now able to, they're able to basically window shop for men, right? So, they'll get the men, basic physically worshiping them to, so that they can possibly have a, a relationship or a girlfriend or a partner, whatever you want to call it. Um, and so they're plying them with gifts and the dinners and the wining and dining, and yeah, and the women obviously, yeah, this is great, we can uh, shop around, we can have many partners and all that kind of thing, and the men just have to accept it. So, and they're also choosing not to have children as well, because this they'll say we want to milk this for as long as possible. Now these are all things that have been socially been documented and things. So I'm not pulling these out of my hat. These are actually factual stuff. So we'll get to the other bits later. Let's move on to Japan. So Japan is again another experiment, which, as you know, was the country was heavily traumatized towards the end of World War II, when Hiroshima and Nagasaki were bombed, and entire cities were burned down because they're mostly wooden, and society was traumatized. And then it was the Americans who took over, and they changed the laws, constitution, things like that, and it their culture pretty much collapsed pretty heavily. All the cultural, the religious codes and whatever they used to live by was just pretty much disappeared within a couple of generations. So now you have people who are choosing not to have kids, and um, men and women are not even wanting to live together or even interact really. Um, there's people are staying, um, virgins or well into their 30s or 40s or even for the rest of their life because and they have got like some very strange sort of things. You should see the game shows and what they dispense in vending machines and the comic animated animation culture and so you can that's escapism and strange things. A whole schoolgirl phenomenon and you know all these kind of things that are just you can just look at it and say this is not right. This is not a and what's happening to the society? Well, the society is aging. And when you have an aging society, the newer generation is burdened more and more and more because obviously it doesn't sound very politically correct, but you know people get older, and when they get old, they basically don't. They are not productive. They medically they cost keep increasing, and they'll live till 90 or whatever. And the last 30 years, at least, 3 decades, or maybe or 20, at least 25 years of their life, would be on societies by the increasing amount of the pensions paid over the long period and the cost to sustain this generation. So okay, so this is pretty much occurring sweepingly across the world. So you've got New Zealand, Australia, Europe, US, Canada, pretty much the former British society, and obviously European society. So what's happening here? Well, this is again research. So it's for society to sustain itself, they have to have 1.1 to 1.2 kids. I mean, sorry, 2.1 to 2.2 kids. So basically, you're either having 2 or 3 kids, um, and then the society is sustainable. It'll continue. And if you have, you know, but literally in all these countries I've mentioned just now, so can't look at every single country. These figures are ranging from 1.1 to 1.7, and if it's below 1.7, then it's almost irreversible. It takes about 80 to 100 years for society to recover. If it's anything lower, then it's just not going to recover. So literally, communities are wiping themselves out. Like the Parsis or Zoroastrians in India, they're going into extinction. They're not going to survive another couple of generations. Japan is also heading in that direction, and a lot of countries are. So what does it mean? Well, it means that to sustain that lifestyle, you have to literally, uh, uh, you know, replace it with migration. So because you're going to say, oh, to sustain the aging population, to get the labor, to get the all that thing, we have to uh, you know f- fill that gap with migration. Okay, so I'm going back to China again here because this is a touchy subject. So some people will say, oh well, that's just really sexist, because how come the Chinese are killing girl children and having male children? Well, um, this is biological. Now, you have to remember one thing. So all these people who are on the YouTube, all the voices, the ones, the media, it's everywhere in the world, and it's run, by a few powerful organizations, and they so they basically give you a worldview. So so if you got then somebody like me saying these things, even though they're scientific, will get totally whipped. And I don't mind. Put all the comments below and say whatever you want. Because I'm not a baby. I don't believe in cyberbullying and all that kind of thing. I can take whatever you want to dish at, throw at me. Um, but I see a lot of people who speak like this try their best to remain anonymous. They won't show their face on their videos, and which is quite probably an intelligent thing to do. Um, because I will just get labeled as a misogynist or something like that. But I'm just saying that all my arguments are based on science. I can love women. I can, really want. I can have daughters and just want the best for them. But that doesn't mean that I'm just going to throw science out the window and throw facts out the window and just so that I don't, um, basically don't say the truth. So if you look at this now, the China case, so you forget that say 90% of the world. Now let's go figure lower. Say 85% because I don't want to offend people. So say 85% of the world literally believes in the institution of marriage, and in that institution there's a biological aspect to it. So I don't care. You can be, um, LGBT. You can choose not to get married. You can believe in gay marriage. That's entirely your business. Do all that. No problems. It's just like religion. You do whatever you want. It's none of my business. But you have to remember that 90% of the world's, or let's go 85 of the world's population has this institution of marriage between a male and a female. And uh, what happens in this institution, and has happened since the beginning of time pretty much, is that the women generally go into the husband's household. Ooh, so sexist. And they usually adopt the husband's name. And then when they have children, the children carry that husband's name. So these people in China who are forced to have one child have a psychological thing going on which says that I want my name to continue. So that might sound selfish or something, but it's human nature. And they want their name to continue. They will, you know, some might adopt, some might, but most of them will choose to have a male child for that very reason. So that might be a horrible thing, or whatever it is, but it's a fact. And it exists in the highest population centers all across the rest of the countries in the world. So the Indias, the Chinas, the South Americas, pretty much most of the world. The Russians, it's just there. That's how it's been, and it's not likely to change. So that's what's happening. So, um, and and now let's look at another thing that is again completely thrown. Is when these societies become like this, then people don't want. Why are Chinese men getting Vietnamese wives? Because the Chinese women are now you're going to say, oh, what do you call it? Yeah, slut shaming. Men are called studs and women are called this and that. Well, let's look at science. Let's look at mammals. When a man and a woman lie together, um, and something occurs, then the the biological weightage the burden is heavily on the woman. So you have to don't look at us in the last 50 years, the last 100 years. Look at us for pretty much thousands of years. And we are just animals in that way. We were until the invention of agriculture, which is, old, but people didn't have a constant food supply. They didn't have supermarkets and fridges and things like that. So weightage, that's biological weightage, like, so when a woman chooses to have a child, she will make a choice that gives her support, right? And a man will make a choice that will say that I'm gonna make, if I'm going to do this, then I also will, if in this ball of a marriage, I will support and sustain instinctively. But for that, I will have to know that the child is mine. It's a biological investment now for both of us. But not just some guy who's come and impregnated her and I don't know about it and he's gone off and I'm raising the children and they're not mine. They're not biologically mine. So you can say, oh, that's just nasty and selfish and whatever, but it is it's just ingrained in people. It's ingrained in mammals. You just name an animal and I'll tell you how it's just that way. Let's just go with the lion, the African lion. The females do the hunting and stuff, and the male's job is to come there and protect or whatever. And that's not in every species. I mean, for example, the Asiatic lion, they both hunt. But the African lion is a bit different. So, and then the juvenile males all kicked out, and the guy, has his pride, and the females, and then someday one of the juveniles will return from somewhere else or from another pride and try to kill you. And if he succeeds, he will kill the cubs, and because he doesn't want to be bringing up, another progeny, and then the females will go into heat again, and he will be it'll be part of the pride. I should have put my phone on silent. That was a break in this thought flow. So you've got where was I? The lions and all that. So that's a basis of, and this is nothing to do with people who make any lifestyle choice. I really don't care. These are just actual facts. You can make any lifestyle choice you want. That's entirely your business. Entirely, entirely. Um, but don't, don't just because you don't like it. Don't say no. That's all bullshit because you don't want to hear it because whatever reason. But these are facts. Um, so what does this all mean? Well, this means that we are basically as a species we are screwing ourselves. So there's enough. Now you'll have the other side of the argument, and people will say, "World population," and I'll say yes. I'll say first of all, we are just getting better and better at killing each other. I mean, World War II was 36, 37 million people. World War III was about 60 something million people. What's the next one going to be? We're just going to find a way to kill more and more of us. Number one. Number two. So when you have this narrative of, let's not have kids and, we make different lifestyle choices and all that kind of thing, and you think you're doing it for the planet, think again. Because the people who are having lots of kids are not doing that much thinking. They are the ones who are generally from more poverty or maybe just not having the rights to be able to not do this, like in some societies where just women just don't have that this right that should be theirs. And these are the societies that are having lots and lots of kids. And so I'm going to just use India as an example so I don't piss off anybody. Um, you know, um, in India, um, now the people who are educated, who've got an apartment, who've got a car, got, basically, you know, more wealth, the middle class and all that are the ones who are not having kids, or they're just having one child. And this child will, of course, be brought up in a, better with better education, with better health, and maybe a better worldview, and become productive citizens. They'll start businesses, they'll provide jobs and things like that. But they're not the ones having kids. The ones who are having kids are the ones who basically can't afford kids. So they'll have six kids and they're not able to educate them, or even if their education is there, it's not a very it's not even education the way you'll see it. It's much more narrow-minded, and the teachers themselves are from those backgrounds and things like that, and they're not able to give them much more ammunition for life. And the parents can't sustain this, so they just basically replace their parents. They do the kind of work that doesn't um, increase society's general well-being. They won't be doing mostly. There'll be a tiny percentage that might be achievers and then become a doctor or something like that. But that's so rare that you just have to be really. You got your blinders on if you think that that's. So yes, the population is increasing. So in India, they have this concept. I don't know why it disappeared. I think it was because of the left. But they used to have these posters back in the 70s, I believe, and it used to be, it's to say, hum do hamare do, which said basically us two and our two, which was motivating the public, the general public, to just have two kids. And now with the event of um, mobile phones, TV, everybody in India's got a mobile phone or two. Every single person, right from the villages, right all the way to, and you can just send them text messages, and you can bring up this thing again, and it'll start sinking into the general population. It'll start saying, okay, maybe six kids is not such a good idea. Maybe two kids is a better idea. Um, and but I don't know why, but this is just it's disappeared. I guess it was all that movement to you can't have you can't have a say in reproductivity. You're not having a say in reproductivity. You're just trying to say an educated thing. You're just trying to say an intelligent thing. You're trying to say that if the population in India and China and stuff becomes like that, it'll slowly be sustainable. It won't be wildly increasing, and natural factors will be culling the population anyway. You got your deaths, untimely deaths, you've got wars, you've got famine, you've got disease. These will then the population will reach a level where they'll say, okay, we pretty much gone to levels where we really need to repopulate, and then they'll say, okay, let's have three kids. So it'll be sustained, and people really have a very narrow view of the world. They don't realize the scale of the planet. Because we just live in certain belts. The most human beings live in belts where um, the land is arable, and the rest of the deserts and forests and all the ice-covered areas and everything, we don't realize it's huge, and we're sustaining ourselves fairly well with food security, and the technology is increasing. Countries like India and China they've been doing research for decades. They feed themselves, they export, they give aid to other countries in disaster. So yeah, it's not as bleak a picture as you imagine. However, before there's a major war and everybody starts baby booming again, and we get a whole bunch of idiots who are going to come out and they'll be all privileged, and when they're privileged, they're going to say some stupid shit is it's going to make the next generation really dumb. Well, that will happen if we don't do things smartly. So I'm not going to go too much into this subject. Uh, the biological thing. Um, everything in this scenario, and Oh yes, one last bit I wanted to say. So when you say you migrate to a country, right? You decide, okay, that country is open its borders, and you know, and 10, 15 years ago you moved to this country, and you moved there because you said, this is the kind of lifestyle and prosperity and things that I'm looking for, and you're very happy. And then this society is not sustaining itself; it's just not having kids. And then the demographics just change, and it's the rug is pulled out from underneath you. And I've seen this happen. I've been around long enough to see this happen. Society gets really, really affected with uncontrolled uh, immigration, migration, and it's left reeling. It's left reeling because all the social discourse, things like just change. It just changes. You have such different levels of thinking. Here I'm walking around, and I'm pretty much in fear of in the West, that I will offend, and I might, like I'm literally scared of approaching not, women in a lot of circumstances, because sometimes you say something or you do something instinctively that you might feel protective over a child that's running, and you might just try and stop them from running onto the road, and you might get evil stare, or you'll be behind bars. So it becomes an introverted society. Yet when another um, social group moves into the society, they don't have those norms. They can go around, pushing, harassing, and and doing whatever they want. So, and I really don't. I'm not in Europe, so I really don't. That's your guys' problem. I'm not in US. That's your guys' problem. The countries that I do live in, I am concerned about it because it's the future of my progeny. I want my children to grow up in a healthy society, and what's wrong with that? So I say these things because I'm being honest. Um, I'm not anti-blanket, don't have immigration and all that kind of thing. No, no, I'm not an extremist in any form. But you have to look at the reasoning you have behind a lot of what people do and say, and how they act, and the influence they have, the literal influence they have, which is based on stupidity. And yeah, that's all I'm going to leave it as. That's just your guys' food for thought. I'm not going to bring these subjects up. I'll try not to. I really have to become anonymous if I'm going to speak anymore about this. So this is SDK, and yeah, don't remember this face. Um, yeah, have a nice day. Thanks.